I'm going to start you, okay?
Good evening, everybody. So sorry about the delay. We are going to call the, what day are we? April 9th, 2025 Community Facilities Building Committee meeting to order at 7:12 p.m. And if we could please rise for, first for a moment of silence for Trumbull family who had a big loss this week, and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the
Flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I have roll call on here, but I'm looking around, and for Gia's sake, everyone is here except Matt Sather, who is coaching his team up in, I believe, Madison tonight. So we're good to go with that. And with that, I am going to call for public comment. I'll remind people if they can try to keep it as concise as possible and as respectful as possible. We'd appreciate it. Just talking about the project. Thank you. Yeah, I don't usually do a sign-in sheet. It's kind of a just free-for-all. We'll recognize anybody who comes up. And please remember to state your name and address, and as close to 2 minutes as possible would be much appreciated. Thank you.
I still have a,
Turn your mic on.
Yeah,
oh, there we go. How's that?
better.
Okay. I got a Mars bar in my face. Jerry Gregory, 45 Plymouth Avenue. I'm the one that lives behind St. Teresa's. But the only comment I would like to make, and it's just for clarification, at the last meeting, what little I know about all of the development and everything comes down to that were a lot of statements made, from my perspective, that were false or misleading. So when there's a big election on TV, they have a fact checker. So I don't know who the fact checkers are, but if there's a misleading statement, generally supported by their own feelings about things, which are not facts, that we get that corrected immediately so anybody listening doesn't go away with an impression of something that is false. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Ganino, 3 Canterbury Lane. I was, when I came to the meeting the other night, I was really buoyed because I had thought that the proposal had been accepted unanimously by the committee, this august body. I thank you for your time. The Board of Finance, the Legislative Committee, was it?
Yeah, the subcommittee is the Finance Subcommittee of the Town Council.
And I think they were all unanimous. So I came here with the great expectations. I thought my wife and I were seniors. We've been paying taxes with our in-laws for 40 years, and I really thought this time would be the charm. I was laboring under misconception. I left, it was a gut punch, and I would only like to know and maybe why everything changed so abruptly. Why? I guess it was tabled, and I thought it's disingenuous. And the gentleman who went on a rant, I don't remember his name, I think he sat over where that gentleman is, about what happened 10 years ago, was patently false. And I was amazed that he wasn't shut down by the chair. 10 years ago, I believe it was, the proposal wasn't acted upon by the Republican Party at that time. So I don't know if that changed somebody's mind, that they're laboring under a misconception that it was the Democrats or some other entity. And I'm just really shocked. I'm stunned. And as a disabled American veteran, a volunteer at the senior center, and someone who's like all of us, I never complain about paying taxes. I think it's a wonderful, great school system. And I just want you to know that for whatever reason, I was really gut punched, big time. But there's other ways to address it, and that certainly will come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Maureen Delvecchio from Tanglewood Road. Thanks for giving me this time. I did prepare a lot, but I'll just cut it down. I agree with what this gentleman said. My purpose of being here is to say that I've been following this very closely, and I was shocked and amazed at what went on Monday night. It was my first town council meeting that I stayed for the whole thing, and I already knew, as this gentleman just said, that there was a unanimous agreement by the finance committee, the building committee, everybody, to have this go forward. Forward, not us making a decision, not the council making a decision, but the residents of Trumbull making a decision. I mean, that's the point, is to put this in front of the voters. I just think it was it blindsided everybody. It seemed like it was a pre-prepared statement just to cut the entire thing off at the knees. I just thought it was so unfair. And to ask the town to put up a lot more money now for 3 plans, three architectural sets of drawings. These guys have done an amazing job, 10 years in the making, and they want to start from scratch. 3 financial packages, months and months of work. It's crazy, and it's going to cost the town a lot of money. Where's the savings in that? All we're asking for is 1.5 cents on every tax dollar for a beautiful senior center and community space that the seniors, 30% of the residents of this town, deserve a decent place. And I've been waiting 10 years for it, and I think I'm really getting emotional because I can't believe what I saw the other night. These guys have worked so hard. All of you have worked so hard, and so let's try to put it forward again. Request that it go back on the agenda in May. What can we all do in this town to get people to see the good plan that you all put together and worked so hard for? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bernice Oliar, and I live at 102 Tanglewood Road. It's a little bit redundant of what Maureen said, but a little bit different. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you. Every person on this committee, thank you for your hard work and your dedication to the project and to the seniors. I'd like to thank Tom Rocco, their company, Vicki and her team, and Michelle. Michelle's not here, but Michelle and the team at the Senior Center. All of you and the seniors who have showed up and continue to show up and continue to feel, well, I'm not going to speak for all of them, but have feelings about this. And they were shattered the other night. And my thanks to anyone else I may have omitted. I'm not going to repeat any of the nasty comments that have been targeted at, not at the Senior Center, but at the seniors online. We all know what happens when some people get behind a keyboard and a screen, and that seems to be what's happening. And from what I understand, many of them have not been kind at all. That shatters me as a 50-year-old resident of this town, a town that I love. As I said at the recent meeting, the opposition to the center feels like ageism. It really does. I may be wrong, but that's how I feel when I see and I hear these comments, and this is not the Trumbull that I bought my house in 50 years ago. My boys grew up here. We were active in our church, in our community, in sports, and this is what is now. I can't believe it. And to pull the literally 11th hour request, well, I was in disbelief. That gave a new meaning for me to the 11th hour. Town council members had more than enough time to request the 3 other proposals. More than enough time. 10 years. 10 years it's been. This building design is the same one that they've been using since the beginning. And if they felt the footprint was too big, why not bring it up at an earlier meeting? If they wanted to cut the cost and have other bids and proposals, why wait until the night of the vote? The timing of the request seems to me that it was well calculated. And yes, it will now add additional dollars to the cost, both in time and the cost of goods, as well as the architect expenses. Then, I have a feeling the focus will be on the cost of the project, the taxes, the this, the that, anything to stall the project. That's how I feel. I feel the opposing town council members are just delaying the project to have it go to a November vote on the ballot. Actually, some opposing residents actually voiced that to me. These opposing residents said that they are for the senior center, not a community center. And to that I say, time will tell. Time will tell. As the cost of this project increases, time will tell. Over 10 years, I keep going back to that. I talked about my grandson the other day. Picture it. Picture this guy now going off to college, 10 years, and you've all been dedicated to this. Thank you. The disregard and disrespect toward our seniors and the senior center facility from this calculated vote does not feel like the Trumbull that I know and loved. It is a sad commentary for the town, the seniors of today, and for those of tomorrow. And sadly, excuse me, it is the seniors who must continue to tolerate the extreme shortcomings of this building. I'll just end with this. The irony of that last statement is that one of the most vocal opponents of the project visited the senior center and actually told me that the conditions there are deplorable. Let's pause and think about that. That even the people who feel that way recognize the sad state of our senior center. And I appreciated him voicing that to me. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
My name is Mark Ryan. I live at 47 Oak Ridge Road. I had not prepared anything. I actually hadn't known about the meeting until about a half hour ago. Did not plan on saying anything, but I am vice president of the senior golf group in Trumbull. I'm on the Commission for Aging for Trumbull, and the only reason I mention that is because I have a lot of exposure to a lot of seniors. We had a golf outing today, and I probably talked to about 20 different seniors. And sadly, I think most seniors are so distraught with the decision was made, and I'm preaching to the choir here, I understand that, so it's kind of lost. But in my 35 years of living in Trumbull, I have voted in favor of every single school funding project that has been brought, and I think that's what I want to do. But I talked to more seniors today that said, I will never vote for any more funding for any of the schools because the town has shown they don't care about the seniors. We're 25 to 30% of the population, and if that becomes a general rule, and I'm telling you, I've talked to a lot of people today because where I was, it could become a problem. We could wind up being like Monroe, with every program that comes down, you have to go through 3 and 4 different things. It's really unfortunate, and unfortunately, probably this is not the people we should be talking to, but it's really disrespect for the seniors in this town to have this carried out for this long and this little support from other people. I'm tired of hearing someone get up here and say, I'm for the senior center, but, and come up with 4 different reasons why they don't want it. It's an easy out for them to say that. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. I just want you to know that I also am a very emotional person, and I'm not the enemy, but I hope that you will listen to what I have to say and recognize why the neighborhood group has done what they've done. Sherry Boyd, 16 Pinehurst Street. The Grace Church property is not the town campus, and our stretch of Main Street is certainly not an industrial corridor, as one of the architects referred to it in the town council meeting on Monday. Ours is a residential neighborhood, And these are our front, side, and backyards you are developing. Zoning exists for a reason. Keeping residential areas free from commercial development serves the entire community. A senior center with similar programming and hours as Priscilla Place can fit within our residential neighborhood. The building committee was assigned to create a senior center with community use, is my understanding. During the initial walkthrough at Grace Church property, we were told that meant a senior center with some extra meeting space, I guess for town committees or whoever might need it at the time. Between then and now, several tests have apparently been done on the land, but we have seen none of the results. A neutral evaluation of the trees and a wildlife study should also be done here, given the proximity to the river valley and what we hear from the abutters about the wildlife that prances through their yards. We have been questioning the size of the building and encouraging the committee to scale it down for 6 months, and the building plan has changed very little since the Hardy Lane model was released. By proposing a senior center with Parks and Rec use, the town is minimizing senior needs. My research on 11 surrounding towns and an additional 11 towns with similar populations reveals that only 4 towns have combined facilities out of the 22 towns. Seniors need a building where they can go anytime to participate in the many senior programs, not a shared building where they may be restricted when Parks and Rec has programs scheduled. The current senior center is 20,000 square feet and is not what the town seniors need. That does not mean that the seniors need a 30,000 square foot building. This is what I know from visiting the current senior center and doing some measurements. The current 20,000 square foot senior center was originally a school, and most of the space is smaller classrooms and offices, so it is terribly inefficient as a senior center. The existing room being used as a gymnasium is 1,584 square feet, which is only big enough for 1 pickleball court. So clearly that's not big enough. A 3 pickleball court gym is 3,900 square feet. That gym, in a properly designed 20,000 square foot building, leaves 16,100 square feet for all of the rest. That gym with dividers can also be used as a multi-purpose room. There is additional unnecessary redundancy in the proposed building. The arts, crafts, games, double-sized classroom, 2 conference rooms can all be combined into 2 flexible rooms with scheduled activities. The 5 offices and 2 administrative areas seem like more space than the senior center and social services team need. All the unnecessary space should be eliminated. Someone has been misrepresenting our neighborhood group. We care about the seniors. As we enter the season of outdoor pickleball play, we hope that, I'll get that for you.
Oh, he's got it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry. As we enter the season of outdoor pickleball play, we hope that Parks and Rec can assign blocks of time for seniors on the 20 outdoor pickleball courts. Then, between now and the first frost in October, we will do the research and help formulate an indoor pickleball contingency plan for seniors, so next winter will be better. Thank you. Do I turn this in here?
Sure. Anyone else? Mrs. McHugh?
Hi, good evening. Lainey McHugh, 115 Canterbury Lane, as of last week. I just wanted to state for the record that I am the current chair of the Board of Finance, and I wanted to say thank you to this committee for your diligence, hard work. It's been a really long slog. I've been following your committee meetings and notes in preparation for the Board of Finance vote on the bond authorization. And it was a very thorough, thought-out presentation, and it was passed with bipartisan support. So we are a board that takes a very hard look at what the impact is long-term, what it costs to bond for a project like this, and what the impact is to the taxpayers. And I think a lot of that information was severely misrepresented across the board. So I wanted to first say thank you to you for your service. The second thing is, for me, as a taxpayer and an almost senior, I think, and my day job is I'm a physical therapist, and I work in maintaining healthy lifestyles for people throughout the span of their life. And this is not about pickleball. This is about making a facility that meets the needs of our community. Our community and our seniors deserve a center that meets its needs. To cheap out, slim down, pare away at what our needs are misrepresents what the needs of our community is, and is a waste of time and energy. The fact that at all of these committee meetings, not once was this brought up, but then brought forth that, maybe you should be looking at a pool with a 40,000 square footprint. Yes, we should have done all of that. This facility that you have brought forward meets the needs of the seniors, our social services, our pantry, and allows for flexibility and growth as things change over time, as they do. Pickleball wasn't a thing 50 years ago. It's a thing now. And it will be the fad for the time being, but there will be some other use. It is tantamount importance that people remain active and able to have a sense of a place to gather as we age. So I really encourage you to not make changes that came at the 11th hour based on whim. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to call public comment at 7:33. I'm going to take a little liberty and just make a brief statement myself, and try not to be emotional because this is emotional. We too were disappointed, I think, as a committee the other night. That being said, Town Council, it's in their purview to do as they please. But I just want to make it clear from my perspective, from what this committee is doing, is what our charge has been all along, and we will continue to do that. We believe and voted unanimously on a project that we thought served all the needs that were addressed to us. I don't want to chuckle. I think our first speaker, Mr. Gregory, talked about fact-checking. Well, it's very frustrating to sit up here and have people say things that we know are their opinions and not the facts. And all I can say to that is this committee has to go on facts. And it's harder being in that audience the other night and hear things that we know may be people's opinions and other people may take as facts. We were given a job to do. We'll continue to do that in whatever parameters that we have. I have appreciated the neighbors' concerns along the way. We've made changes. It may not be what they've wanted, but we've tried to listen. I've been encouraged by seniors coming out and sharing their voices. We've been doing this for a long time in one way or another, and I know it's been difficult to gather seniors together to express their needs, and I think you should all be proud of yourselves. I know I certainly was, and was very touched by your very factual comments of what you're living. I hope we can continue to do this in a way. I hope it gets done sooner rather than later. I would like to have some time later on. I think we'll go through with the rest of the agenda, but I'd like some time to kind of digest a little bit more about what happened the other night, particularly with our two town council representatives, to give everybody a better understanding of what can happen moving forward. And we do have Tom and Rocco here, as always. I will share one little side note that has actually propelled me over the last 2 days, and the next morning waking up very early and with lots of texts and being very tired. And Tom was my first phone call, and I thought he was going to say, "Nice to know you. See you later. It's been fun." But he said the opposite. He basically said, "Let's go." And I people can have different opinions about different people's professionalism or whatever, but this company has done nothing but been champions for this project, and I think they will continue to be so. So I just wanted to share that. With that, I think what will best way to do this is to get on with our approval of our minutes, kind of get done with the regular business, and then maybe go a little bit past the 5 meetings that have happened since this last meeting, and then get to having some conversations with our architects. So if I could call for approval, we have 2 sets of minutes to approve. Approval of the March 12th, 2025 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Don Cantafio. And a second?
Second, Dave Gallo.
Dave Gallo. Any questions? Rich, I'm looking to you. Anybody have any changes? Okay, I know it feels like forever ago, but, okay, so unanimous consent to accept those minutes?
No objection.
Okay, all good? Okay. And, well, let's do the same for the March 20th, 2025 special meeting minutes. If I can have a motion to accept those.
So moved on Contafio.
And a second?
Dave Gallo, second.
Okay, any questions, concerns, changes? I know for Gia, these were very, very long minutes, so hopefully they're all to everyone's liking. Okay, so can I get that by unanimous consent as well?
No objection.
Okay, good enough. All right, that part's done. Recap of recent town meetings, which I had in this long pile of notes, but I can probably memorize it off the top of my head. So since our last meeting of this committee, on March 24th, I believe it was, we had a presentation by the architects at the Senior Center. It was very well attended, great questions from a lot of people. I think a lot of people learned a lot. It was a very, what I thought, a productive and informational meeting. And should and when this moves on, I hope we can do more of those to the general public, because I think people learned a lot about the project, so that was great. The end of that week, yes, we probably went to Board of Finance on March 27th, and that's already been spoken about, that the authorization for the bonding was approved unanimously at the Board of Finance on March 27th, which moved us forward to the Town Council Finance Subcommittee on March 31st. Where again the architects did another presentation, some questions were asked. That was approved not unanimously. I believe the vote was 5-1. Am I right? Right, 5-1. To move that forward to council. I would like to note that at the end of all those meetings, the committee did ask through me that if anyone had any questions about anything that they needed to see differently, to please let us know before the town council meeting, and I did not receive any requests for that. The town council meeting, as we all know, happened last Monday after a lot of speakers and a really long meeting and a lot of people in this room. This room looks different when there's not gymnastics teams and wrestling teams and lots of policemen. I drove up and saw 3 police cars and got really nervous, I'm just going to say. Anyhow, for most of you that were here, some discussion ensued. The motions to put across the authorization for bonding, the authorization for the referendum, and the authorization to get the town clerk to create language for the referendum were all voted down, I believe 11-10 in each vote.
We only took one vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. All the resolutions were on there. We took the one vote, and another motion was made. I have that motion because I know some of our committee members weren't here. I have some of the language for that motion, the best I can do with it. I'm sorry. I really have a lot of papers today.
Please go.
Thank you. But for those who weren't there, the motion read as this. The motion was that we postpone the current resolution, which was TC 30-138, to the June 2025 council meeting, and refer the current Senior Community Center proposal back to the Building Committee with a request to present 3 alternative design options by July 2025. As examples, we could look at a 20,000 square foot building or a 10% reduction in cost. Each alternative should include a detailed cost estimate, which includes a comprehensive breakdown of construction costs, including hard cost materials and labor, for example, and soft cost, design fees and permits, as well as projecting operating and maintenance expenses. Should also include a cost-benefit analysis and evaluation of each design's benefits relative to its cost, ensuring alignment with community needs and financial sustainability. Comparative data, information from other municipalities that have recently constructed or renovated senior centers, providing context and benchmarks for a project, and a tax impact to the citizens of Trumbull. So that is the motion that was made and passed at the town council meeting on Monday, and so that is where we begin our work.
So it passed by party line, is that correct? Right?
Yes.
11 to 10. 11 to 10. Republicans voted it down, and Democrats voted for the original resolution, correct?
Yes. And this...
Not this one, this is
right,
amended.
this resolution was passed 11 to 10. The other one was
By the
voted down to 11
Republicans.
to 10.
And can we get a copy of this sent to all our committee members so we can
Is this
share
the
that?
formal? Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I just thought it was important to get the concept of the resolution so we know what we're moving forward with. So that's kind of where we're at. We can certainly have discussions along the way. Tom and Rocco agreed to come again. Obviously, this will include a necessary ask for more money because 3 proposals don't come for free. And we had reached the scope of, had come close to reaching the scope of QA&M's work on their current contract extension. So, yes.
Before we have Rocco and Tom present to us, are we able to discuss this at all, the language of what you just read? Because I'm wildly confused about half of what's on there, that isn't even work we did in this committee. I mean, I've only been on the committee for not even a year. I think I'm just so. What is a cost benefit analysis? Like, I mean, I'm in business. I know what a cost benefit analysis. But is that the responsibility of this body to do all that work?
So that's a good question, and I think we've been mulling around for a while, and I hope we're going to get more clarity on it as it moves forward. I think our first instinct, especially from QANN's perspective, was to start working on some concepts, and that I'd like to talk about some of the ideas of what can be, whether moved around, eliminated, or et cetera. I'd like to take some time to talk about that. I don't know how to get the answers to that for you tonight. I agree. I think this is some of it unattainable.
It's a massive overreach. And also, I also want to point out that what it says in there is for example. So there's no mandate that we have to build a 20,000 square foot building or that we have to save 10%. Those were examples.
Yes.
So I think that's fair. And a lot of this I'm saying for everybody who's at home.
Yes.
Okay, I want everybody to understand what happened here. So that's it.
I agree with you. I was a little dumbfounded that night to really try to take it all in. I just got the wording from looking at someone looking at the tape. I think we'll have a better idea once the minutes are in place, I hope, and I hope we'll have more clarity. That may mean us having to meet again to kind of discuss that. I don't want to try to give answers that I don't know. But I think some of this has to be discussed and clarified and to see whether that really is. I mean, obviously coming up with different concepts is something that we could be working on, but some of these other points, except the tax impact to the citizens of Trumbull, which we have intended on doing all the time, and we've discussed that numerous times about having a meeting similar to Hillcrest. What actually, maybe before we get to them, and I know something I'd written down in my notes that I'd like clarified, and because we have 2 town council reps here, I'd like the opportunity to ask that, is I've been on building committees before. It was a long time ago. The rules are old, Dan. But I think I mentioned the other day, and I think I was told not to compare apples to oranges, but our most recent building committee obviously is the Hillcrest Building Committee. We know there will be more of those moving forward. I looked back on meetings regarding those, and none of these were asked of that committee. None of the not for cost benefit analysis, not for other ideas that would save them money. There was not discussion about comparative data anywhere. There was not, and I think it was brought up the other day when we talked about how much this costs to be a square foot. I don't think they were asked if their floors were going to be paved in gold. And I just want to know if that is something that didn't happen because it's the school system, or what is the difference between that bonding resolution and what we're trying to do, other than they're 9 years behind us or ahead of us, whichever way you want to look at it. So, and right, $110 million more expensive. So I guess that shook me a little bit in trying to understand it. Listen, I don't have problem. I'm going to make this clear. I have no problem cutting some costs. I have no problems relooking at this if that's something that was asked. Do I wish it was not asked at literally the 12th hour, because I believe it was almost midnight? Yes, absolutely. I do have an issue with that. There was plenty of opportunity to ask before, but that's just my own opinion. And I still don't have a problem with it. I think we have to be equal. And I've heard the word ageism too much lately. I don't want to hear it. It upsets me. It upsets me, I'll be honest, when I hear seniors, and I understand your frustration that you'll say you'll never vote for another school project. That's not what we've purposely always tried to stay away from. Compare the schools to the seniors. We don't want to do that. That is not our purpose. I've been an education advocate for as long as I've lived in this town and will continue to be, and I will continue to be a senior advocate. I don't think they need to be mutually exclusive. But I just, from town council rep's perspective, what was different for that committee that is different for ours? Can you give us any insight, either Mike or Kelly? I'm putting you on the spot, sorry.
I mean, I've only sat on subcommittees, and I'm the chair of the Middlebrook HVAC renovation project. And again, I got seated on this committee as the town council representative from the Democratic Party in July of last year. My understanding of what my role is on this committee is to be the conduit between all of us in this body and my caucus in the Democratic Party for the town council. And I have very diligently communicated everything that happens at every meeting, the times I walked in all the neighbors' backyards, met with neighbors. Every meeting I have attended, I have shared the information about what goes on here and what the plans are with my caucus. And every single time we have a meeting, I go to my caucus and I say, tell me about your concerns, your questions, your issues. And my caucus, we talk about it collaboratively. So that is why I think we are all sitting here so dumbfounded today. And I've apologized to many of the seniors. We are heartbroken, and I want all of you to know that that is what this is right now. So that's probably not even a very good answer, but that's my answer.
And I don't want to compare that, because I supported the Hillcrest. I will support more than likely the projects moving forward. I just want to, I guess I want to go to how things work, and was there consistency when you were looking at Hillcrest, and were those same concerns that we're being asked to address then?
I feel like Hillcrest is a lot early. It's a lot newer. So I think they only have met maybe a few times so far.
Yeah, so I guess I'm talking about to when the bonding resolution went through. So I don't know, Mike, do you have anything to add?
Sorry about that. Good. So I'd asked a lot about cost leading up to our last meeting. We were given the cost on March 18th. In my personal opinion, I would have liked to have a little bit more time between March 18th and our April meeting to either talk as a committee about the cost compared to the layout, and then gone back to the party if need be. Me personally, looking at some research between our last meeting and the vote the other night, I mean, I'm on a website right now. The town of Newington built a facility 5 years ago with QA&M, 75,000 square feet, for 28 million bucks. So again, I'm not going to, I know the New London mentioned the other night, I'm not going to say these are all apples to apples. I'm not. Believe me, I'm not saying that it should be. My point is I kept looking at the square footage and the total dollar amount. And over the last X amount of days, I'm saying to myself, and just so all the seniors know in the room, I want this community center, this senior center, community center for all of you, right? I receive emails from both sides. I have people doing exactly what they did the other night. I have people crying, saying they can't afford to live here. I have other people saying, I've been feeding this town my money for 50 years and I'm due this. So there is both sides that you have to consider. So me personally the other night, I was very, very torn at the square footage and the dollar amount. It made me kept going back and saying, now that I know what this cost is in the square footage, can we just look at maybe there's another way? I'm not saying we have to take the gym out, but can we maybe put the gym on the front now? Could we maybe do one level? Would that save excavation costs?
Right.
I'm just
and
looking.
We're gonna discuss that. I guess
Yeah.
my question, Mike, was did you do the same due diligence when you were considering Hillcrest?
Hillcrest is a brand new build on flat property that's already being used.
That's not the answer.
I guess I'm asking about the process then, right? I mean, well, then that's kind of comparing to New London that you talked about the other day.
But we also knew the cost well before our vote, right? We weren't given the cost 10 days and then say, by the way, you have to vote on this in 10 days, yes or no. We were given the ability to dissect it a little bit more than we were with this current facility and building.
Okay, I'm going to move on. If did you have anybody else have something?
Then that should have been brought up at the meeting, I think. Our meeting. That should have been vocalized. Or you could have at least given Lori the heads up.
Dawn, you're 100% right, and that was part of my conversation with Lori earlier, right?
That probably everybody
I wanna
overheard.
hear.
Right, and I'm with you, and in hindsight, I wish I would have talked to Lori between. But in the same breath, after then dissecting the cost on my end, I had to do my own due diligence and look at New London, look at Rocky Hill, look at Southington, look at Colchester.
Okay,
right?
I'm gonna
Go up to
So-
Rocky Hill, which I did do.
So the really, really quick answer to your question is no. Nobody said make the auditorium smaller. Why are there so many bathrooms? Why is there paint on the walls? No, we did not do that at all.
I think really my question was just about being equitable. You know, I don't ever want to, again, pit schools against seniors. I don't want to do that. But when the money, when a project that is a school project isn't dissected, and this is, I have to have an answer for seniors for that. So I was just trying to look at process. But I'm going to move on, and unless someone, Ron.
Forgive me, my name is Ron Foligno. Kelly, when you did your little talk, which I appreciated, you used the word caucus. I'm displaying my ignorance. What is a caucus and how does that work?
There are 10 of us. So the town council is made up of 21 representatives that are elected, 3 in each of 7 districts. There are 11 Republicans and 10 Democrats. So I was the representative, or I am the Democratic representative of the town council in this body, and Mike is the Republican representative of this body. And so we're just like all the Democrats. And that's who I communicate with, because that's, right? Does that make sense?
But how does that affect? I mean, do you guys have any private meetings? I'm on the Commission for Aging. I don't know if we have a group.
Well, we
of
talk.
More than half. We're not allowed to take
Right.
minutes, and FOIA gets involved.
Right. Somebody did, or maybe it was you that asked us about that. We do
I
not
did.
believe the caucuses are not foiable. Yeah.
I'm going to display my ignorance again. And I don't understand how there can be private meetings where you can formally form an opinion of the group.
Oh, good.
Oh, good. Our attorney's
Someone way smarter than us is going to tell you.
I'm making my return with this. Under the Freedom of Information Act, all public meetings are subject to freedom of information. They're public, and we all know that. There's an exception under the Freedom of Information Act for caucuses of the members of a body who are the representatives of one political party. So in this case, The Democrats all caucus together. The Republicans all caucus together. Those are private meetings under the law. And the public does not have access to the meetings. They can keep minutes for themselves, but they can announce their decision afterwards, as happened the other night. So you saw the Republicans went into caucus. They came out and made the motion to postpone the vote. All right, we want to clarify. They didn't vote the bonding authorization down. They voted to postpone the vote to the June meeting with certain conditions, certain things that they were asking to take place. But so that in the Commission for Aging, if the Democrats most boards and commissions are not all that political. All right. So, but if the Democrats on the Commission of Aging, or the Democrats on the Police Commission, or the Democrats on the Inland Wetlands Commission wanted to caucus among themselves, they have a right to do that. And the rest of us don't have access to that meeting.
Good.
Okay?
Thank you. I have a hard time. Thank you.
Don't move. While you're up there, just something that I need to try to understand, and you may not understand any better than I do, but as far as this motion, why would we go back in June to look at this resolution when they're not asking for plans until July? Does that make
You
sense?
have to ask them. I have no idea. I didn't craft that
Okay.
that motion.
I mean-
I don't understand that particular
Okay.
aspect of it.
Okay.
But that's what they asked to do.
Okay.
I would point, yeah, I don't know if Mike knows, but I would point out also in terms of timeline, if we're talking about something that's going to go on the November ballot, if that's the purpose here, that has basically, process-wise, it needs to be determined by the September meeting at the latest of the town council. And the agenda for that meeting, because it's the beginning of the month, the agenda for that meeting goes out, is being prepared about 2 weeks before that. So that's your timeline, all right? If you don't make the critical point from the point of view of getting it on the ballot is that the town clerk is required under statute to notify the Secretary of the State at least 45 days before the election of the vote that was taken, what the question is, and what the question is going to be on the ballot. So your timeline is actually a lot shorter than what people are talking about.
All right, thank you. I was going to ask you about the timeline, not make you get up again, see?
Just
I've got,
one.
I've got a brace on my knee, so it's a.
Got equipment.
Hi, Christina Laris, just one quick question. When does early voting start, and is that calculated already into your timeline that you just described?
Early voting.
For November election?
Yeah, early voting, no, the election day is the, whatever the first Tuesday after the first Monday, I guess. And the early voting is not taken into account as far as that's concerned. Absentee ballots are not taken into account as far as that was concerned. One of the things, and that was on those agenda items that were tabled, was to determine how the election would, a townwide referendum would be conducted, because a townwide referendum is not subject to all the rules of a general election.
Then if it's switching to November, that language would be different.
If it's switching to November, then we're not going to have any of that additional language. You have to pose the question, and you have to have the town clerk has to determine with me what language should go up to the Secretary of State's office.
Okay.
But as far as determining how many days of early voting, no, there would not be a separate determination of early voting. There wouldn't be a separate determination of what was the cutoff date. Or one of the things in there, or was suggested by the registrar's office, was having to do with the cutoff date for people to register in order to vote. All that goes out the window, because just as the referendum took place last year, right, it was all part of the townwide election.
To Christine's point, the question has to be on absentee ballots, so
Yes.
ready enough for absentee. Okay.
It would be on the absentee ballots also.
Can I ask a question before you
It's up
leave the
to-
podium?
It's up to the chair.
Since, through the chair, since there's no clarity to this or real timeline, what are we looking at to get back to our committee, to proposals for funding? I mean,
Well, we're going to hear tonight a proposal, because the first thing is that, believe it or not, QA&M does not work for nothing. All right? QA&M does not work for nothing. So part of the discussion tonight needs to be the proposal from QA&M, what they need in a supplemental appropriation in order to move forward with this. Now, Chair of the Board of Finance is here. They are having a meeting tomorrow night. If they can get a 2/3 vote, and if it's put forward, they would need a 2/3 vote of the Board of Finance to get a item that's not on the agenda onto their agenda. All right? And then that would require, and then it would be a motion for a supplemental appropriation. All right? That
goes through the Board of Finance and then to
and
Town
then
Council?
Then it would go to the May meeting of the Town Council. So assuming that at the May meeting of the Town Council, they vote in favor of it, and at the same time that they make an emergency legislation, then that would become effective upon publication subsequent to the May meeting of the Town Council. If it's not made emergency legislation, then it would be 2 weeks after publication. So that would take you into sometime into June before there was any money available to QA&M to do this work.
That helps.
Okay?
Thank you. Anybody else have any other questions after Dan sat down? No, I'm kidding.
Dan, can you come by? No, I'm just kidding.
Keep kidding.
I'm kidding. I just had a couple of questions. One of them was clarification. So before it was mentioned something about tax impact as being a part of this. I recall during the meeting the other night that there was something in the package that noted what the tax impact per resident at certain dollar amounts of appraised value would be. I think it was $300,000, $500,000, and $700,000, if that's correct. So
It was in the packet.
150, 300, and yes.
okay, so there were some numbers. So my understanding is that was already presented and it was sent to Town Council in a timely manner. Is that correct?
Right, reflective of that budget.
Of that particular budget?
Right.
Yes, okay. So I was hoping just to see if I could go over just one thing. Having been on this committee for 5.5+ years, Vicki told me 1, the probable estimate of project cost at Hardy Lane, again, not to compare apples to apples, but a like-sized building in December of 2023 was approximately $25 million. Now here we are 2 years later, having presented a unanimous vote for a project at Grace Church of approximately $32 million. And so I guess my conundrum here is that one of the things was that the cost hadn't been presented early enough. And on March 18th, this cost did come out, and I understand that maybe that was a little close. But for my purpose, over years, as time goes on and inflation rears its head and things, everything gets a little bit more expensive, I would assume that the assumption here would be that it would be more than the Hardy Lane project just to start, from a starting standpoint. So, you know, there is a difference in those two, but we, as I believe it was Kevin Shively had motioned or made a comment to, that this was an up to number, right, of 31,750. So, you know, those are fairly comparable numbers given the time that had passed between those two. That's my only point with that. We've also talked a lot about, and I've heard this a lot, that 30% of the residents in the town of Trumbull are seniors over the age of 55. My question is, of the total amount of demographics in the town of Trumbull, what percentage of seniors are actually voters?
That's certainly something we can find out. And yeah. They do better than most of us. All right, anybody else have any other comments before we start getting, oh, Dawn.
Thank you. At the meeting, there was a question about a 50,000 square foot building being done with a aquatic center. So are we going to look at that as well? Tom, do you think we should, that be one of the three? I think that might be a proposal that we'll have to look at. It probably would fit on the property. So would that be a proposal that you think we should consider?
Don't put Tom on the spot. I'm going to say that. I'm going to override you. I understand. I don't think this is something that this committee has embraced for the last 6 months. I understand. And what I'd like to do, actually, that's a good segue to yes, Mike.
I'd like to make a comment. So I brought up the New London comparison strictly because if we wanted to cut that project in half, 57,000 square feet, if we cut that in half, it would be under 20,000. I was just comparing square footage if we cut it in half. I'm not saying that we add any more to that space, but that was going along the lines of if we want to keep the gym in, would maybe it make sense to go on the first level. It would be higher on Main Street, but maybe it would save us, I think maybe at least a couple $1 million in excavating costs.
So you're thinking that we cut the project from 30 to 25? Is that what you were comparing?
No, I'm just saying that if you cut the project in half and you saw what that square footage was for price that they paid, it made you think maybe we should look at a different layout.
Oh.
Maybe we should look at a layout that maybe presents 750,000 a square foot.
When was that quoted? When was that priced?
2022.
Oh, so 22, so we can't really compare pricing.
So I'm going to kind of rein this in a little bit. But
Last comment that we want to talk about years. Colchester Senior Center, 2024, 15,000 square feet,
I think point of
$9.8
order.
million, $620 a square foot, $628 a square foot. I'm just.
So, you know what? I understand that, Mike, and we can certainly start to tear those apart. Obviously, this isn't a place to do it because those aren't all the factors. It's one thing to say square feet and this is what it costs. There's more factors. I think all of us know there's more factors that go into cost than that. I think there would be opportunity for do that. Right now, what I'd like to do is bring Tom and Rocco forward and maybe start to talk about some of what potential changes could happen. And if there's a time in the near future to start comparing to other projects that you think, I think that's a great thing for you to take on, and I will assist you as I can. But I think I think just throwing out square feet and dollar figures is kind of a false narrative a little bit right now. So I'd rather talk about our project and what we can potentially make some changes to. I was holding my breath there too. Very impressive.
Hey.
Hey.
Good evening. Tom Arcari, Principal QA&M Architecture, 195 Scott Swamp Road, Farmington, Connecticut. Monday night was late, and I definitely apologize to this committee. I was a little tired and snarky by the end of the meeting, so that was inappropriate. Obviously, it was frustrating on some fronts for a lot of people. There was a lot of passion in the room, but I've been doing these projects for a long time, and these projects have a path, right, to completion, and it is very common for projects to rethink themselves and evaluate their costs or their scope. So while taking a step backwards can be frustrating to pace, and certainly the seniors and the constituents and the community and this committee, I don't necessarily always think it's a bad thing. So when I woke up this Tuesday morning, I was in a much better mood and said, all right, let's get to it, right? Because I do think, again, I'm just your professional, and this is my opinion, but I think there is a lot of support for the seniors. I think, I don't want to stick my head into politics. I think both sides of the aisle would like to see something happen, but we have to work together and get through the process. And I think what was asked by town council wasn't unreasonable, and certainly nothing that we haven't heard before in other projects in other communities. You know, the things that were requested, alternate options, how can we reduce cost, you know, what are other communities doing? Most of that is all information that we can get pretty readily. Cost-benefit analysis, I think, is really simpler. It's really more about, well, what kind of cuts are we going to make, and how is that going to affect the program? Does it work or does it not work? That's really more of an internal discussion with this committee and the council, or this committee and the end users. So I think it's all stuff that we can accomplish. I do think June is a short time frame, but I think something could certainly be pulled together in time to meet deadlines for the November referendum. So I started taking to heart what town council was really saying about, you know, what are some options? How do we make this project cost less? And that's a challenge because, as I mentioned in the presentation the other night, the feasibility study that was done and voted on by the town and approved by multiple committees really does outline the long-term needs of the seniors. I will point out that at that time, and you can look back on the feasibility study, it's in the records, that at the time, the only thing that was significantly different than the program we have today is size of the gymnasium and pool. There was a pool at one point, there's no pool anymore. But the core programming components for the senior center represented about 22,000 square feet of senior activity space, and then the exercise gymnasium, which in the current configuration reflects about 7,000 square feet. So I started to think about how can we reduce the cost of this project without impacting the core program elements in a significant way. It doesn't mean that we can't compromise, but it means that let's try and preserve the 22,000 square feet and build the rest of it. That's the senior programming component, and preserve the rest of it. So the way we go about doing that is looking at the physical challenges that we have on the site. And when you look at the cost estimate, the money is in the site. There's approximately $4.5 million of site development costs. So the way I start thinking about this is, okay, if we don't change anything from a square footage standpoint, for this first conversation, how do we build it and do it for less? And we really have to look at the site. So this is the existing lower level floor plan, which shows a full gymnasium, 3 pickleball courts, full building, not full building footprint, but a pretty good portion of the footprint. And this is the upper level program, which I think is a good layout site. So we started looking at one option. So the first option is sort of the simplest change. And this was mentioned earlier to the building committee, but the idea is let's reduce the size of the basement, let's reduce the size of the gymnasium. That affects all of the ancillary spaces. Fitness room gets a little smaller, arts and crafts classroom gets a little bit smaller. The gym gets 30%, 33% smaller. You have an exercise space with 2 pickleball courts. This cuts the project by about 4,500 square feet. In this iteration, we would leave all the grades the way they are, site access, the height of the exercise fitness gym, let's call it a gym, would stay the same. And by removing all of that grading and then making construction changes to the building, we can probably save somewhere between $1.5 to $2 million, maybe $1 million to $2 million, but it's in that ballpark without making significant additional changes. The first floor, the main level of the building, would remain essentially unchanged, and the site plan would remain essentially unchanged. But you can see in this dotted white line that we're making an effort to reduce the amount of excavation. Let's limit the amount of rock we remove. Yep.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah,
If you could
let's make it a dialogue.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Is that better?
Let's
Okay.
go.
So if you could go back to the previous slide, the lower level.
Yep.
By removing that section and having that gray, what is the impact of the possibility that this could be used for temporary shelter for people?
Okay,
Because I know that
so-
was kind of important for our fire marshal.
So that really doesn't change it. Keep in mind, these are diagrammatic. The plan would change a little bit. We still have to have a shower. The fire marshal wants a shower in each bathroom. Exercise room could be used for sheltering. This wouldn't be deemed a formal shelter. This would be a heating and cooling center, but the facility would be brand new, and it certainly could be configured to accommodate those functional needs.
Is that gym big enough to play basketball?
This gym would be large enough for a small cross court, like a youth basketball court.
Thank you.
So, all right, let me explain it in a different way. A typical middle school gymnasium kind of has a high school basketball court in one direction and two cross courts. A cross court, a smaller court, would be able to fit in the space, and you'd have enough height to do youth basketball, one court of youth basketball. So I think this is iterative. You can see on the exterior, because the building is still set down to negative 23.5 feet from the first floor at the exercise room, that we still have that depressed area outside the gymnasium. It has been referred to as amphitheater or outdoor classroom, but that is still present in this configuration. So a second option would be to continue that exercise, reduce the basement even more. Once the basement gets small enough, we no longer need the stair, which is on the south side of the building. We have direct egress from the building. The exercise room would be large enough to accommodate one pickleball court and any sort of dance, fitness, and activity space. In this iteration, we would move human services to where the arts and crafts room was going to go and put a fitness room in the middle. Additionally, what would make a significant difference is we would raise the grade to 16 feet below the upper level finished floor. So what this means is the exercise room would accommodate pickleball. It would have the same ceiling height as the current room that's being used for pickleball, but it would accommodate dance, fitness, exercise. It would eliminate a significant amount of excavation, site grading. This would result in savings probably somewhere between $2.5 and $3.5 million. Please keep in mind that these costs that I'm projecting are loose and they are representative. They are relative to the overall project cost. And they are just ideas. So if anyone yells at me tonight after I've been up for 2 days, please just let's keep it inside tonight. One of the unique changes, and actually someone mentioned it tonight, it's a good idea for plan consolidation, would be to take the arts and crafts classroom, move it upstairs. So right now we have multifunction classroom. Oh, Rocco, you told me how to do this. Third button, right? Right button?
At the bottom.
Right button and then,
Options.
thank you. So these multifunction classrooms right now terminate right here. The idea would be, let's expand these classes. We would add sinks, add significantly more storage, add a kiln room, and let these be multifunction classroom / arts and crafts classrooms. I think this is a good idea for consolidation. I think it essentially results in the reduction of one space, one meeting space, and I have some options for this moving forward. But I think this makes good sense. It also addresses the arts programming concerns. There wasn't a lot of natural light in that particular space. This would now be west facing. I think it's a good idea. It saves money, saves square footage. This concept results in a 7,000 square foot reduction to the total size of the building and $2.5 to $3.5 million.
Tom, can I jump in? Sorry. And you already saw my list. I don't think I mentioned earlier to the group that I went and met with Michelle today because I knew she couldn't be here tonight. And I kind of asked her what were, some flexibility based on our old plan, and some that, if possible changes happen, how it would have a detrimental impact on the programming. And option 1 looks good. Option 2, the two first things she thought were imperative was to have 2 pickleball courts. Just by she didn't think 3 was necessary, and actually I think I saw a few of you there today who said, we don't need 3, we're okay without 3, we can't only have 1. And even just watching today for the first time and sitting on a stage, watching people attempt to play in the multi-purpose room, that was a concern. The other thing I specifically asked her about were the flexibility between an art room and the 2 classrooms, and we pulled out the schedule how it is now, and that those 2 classrooms are constantly used, and an art classroom couldn't be interchangeable for it without impacting their programming. So I just want to throw that in. I'm just going to read a couple of them as we're moving forward, and that doesn't mean we can't look at these. I just want I want to give Michelle's input. We did talk about, we've kind of had that office suite upstairs, and she did say how that could be split up with human services downstairs, as long as the senior center services were upstairs amongst more of the senior activities. Maybe in another iteration, you'll have a look at maybe some flexibility about where the food pantry could go. We talked about that small office screening room that seems to have disappeared, and she would be okay with that. We actually talked about whether I hate using this word, but we haven't come up with another one other than amphitheater, but that it does seem to disappear in here, that with the other idea of an outdoor patio space downstairs, that she felt that was sufficient. We did talk about the art room being a little bit smaller, which we've addressed, I believe, in both of them. She did say, and I think you've addressed that here, that a fitness room needed to be different than not happening in the multifunction classrooms or the gym. And I see both iterations consider that the fitness room could be small, but it needed a separate fitness room. And the other thing she thought could be eliminated from our early drawings was the upper exterior patio, just because we had some downstairs outside space. So the 2 pickleball courts in the classroom, 2 classrooms aside from the art room seemed to be, I don't want to use the word non-negotiable because everything's negotiable, but I just want to say that those are the things she stressed.
So I am aware of Michelle's list, thank you. And
Sorry,
those are
Christine.
things we'll work with, but I just want to point out to this committee that we've been directed to look at options to cut cost, and I'm presenting options to cut cost. My intention was to present this information tonight. It's something that this committee can stew on for a couple weeks, and we can talk about it. But I have more options, so I have.
Yes. Through the chair. Thanks, Lori. I just would perhaps add, one of the things that was in our new mandate was cost benefit analysis. I'm thinking more and more of that as being a pro con, right? Just a very simple outline of the pros and cons of each of these. So if we go down the path of further iterating on option 1, 2, and then whatever 3 may be, all of that commentary that comes from Michelle, that comes from the constituents and comes from their programming, becomes our pros and cons, right? And we say, okay, we could do this and it would save this, but the cons are these 5 elements of our day-to-day programming today would be lost, or whatever it may be. So I just want to voice that and make sure that we all think about that. That doesn't mean that at this moment we stop either one of these ideas because it's not meeting the needs, but I think that just means that we become very smart about how we articulate what we're potentially losing. I do think there's a little bit of risk there, though, of course, because, depending upon how town council views that, I don't know that we can convince, let's say, 11 people on town council that might vote in a block, let's say, of how important something is. They might end up still discounting it despite what Michelle's saying, despite what all the constituents in terms of seniors who are regularly using the center might be saying. So that's the risk that we sort of run as we continue to go down these paths.
Did I say this was going to be a dialogue?
Yes. It always,
Darn it. All right.
Apologize.
So let me. I have more to show you. There's a lot more here, and these ideas are all mixed. They can be mixed and matched. So I appreciate the commentary, but let's get through this, and then we can have a conversation. But I do think this is a really strong idea. And I have some supplemental ideas thereafter, and I think it certainly should be considered, because the only way we cut the cost of this building at this site, and I do believe it's a good site, is to look at how it interacts with the site and looking at the gymnasium component. So in regards to option 2, the patio didn't come out, but the patio actually this recessed area comes out in option 2, and the site generally stays the same. We will have to look at the grading. The final grading, because we may have to recapture some of this drive space in order to accommodate the rear of the site. But that's another thing. So option 3, I started on that. Oh, I'm sorry, I did not. So option 3 builds on option 2 and really tries to reduce the lower level. In this configuration, we now have a fitness, exercise, human services space at the lower level, makes a big bite into the square footage, reduces the overall plan by about 8,500 square feet. Can possibly get closer to $3.5 million in project savings. And you can see that now this arts and crafts goes away. All of the excavation over here goes away. The gym space is essentially half its size. Keep in mind, this is still a big exercise room, but in this iteration, there is not a pickleball court. We have dance, fitness, exercise. The upper level would see the reduction, the combination of the arts and crafts, because we have to move it someplace. And then we want to start thinking about, well, how could we pick up the space that we lost? And this exterior patio, which Michelle actually mentioned as not potentially needing, now becomes an opportunity where maybe that floor plate can expand. So we cut square footage below and we add it above. In regards to the site, this site plan becomes very efficient. So we change the entrance grade back to the way it used to be. This becomes a little shallower. We move the parking to the front. So we reduce the size of this exterior patio a little bit. We add more parking closer to the building. And we're really, you can see now, starting to reduce the amount of space that we're excavating. So I think we can save more money in this configuration. So option 4 is actually one of my favorites. It used to be option 4, option 5, but so option 4 takes a very aggressive approach, and I think it gives the town a lot of flexibility. So the idea would be to reduce the lower level significantly. Let's eliminate the gym, let's eliminate the back space, and turn the lower level into just the human services food pantry and a fitness exercise room. On the upper level, again, this should have come out, but I did this very quickly. So we would reduce the height, reduce excavation significantly. On the upper level, we would move arts and crafts to this space and consolidate it, but we would take over that exterior patio. So we would expand the games room and create a new multi-purpose room. If programming said we want the arts and crafts space to be on the north side of the building, this could be arts and crafts, games could shrink a little bit, and then this could go back to the multifunction classroom. And I would think that would be really well. Now, don't yell at me, but I think this is a good idea. I know. So I actually think what would be then a good idea would be to build a gymnasium as a second structure on the site. Call it a supplemental structure, call it a barn structure. It would be built as a pre-engineered structure at grade, and it would be significantly less expensive than building it under 25 feet of rock. So this would allow access at the back of the site. We would have a central communicating walkway between both. There would be accessible parking adjacent to it. This would, by putting retaining at the back of it, I can now take all of the material that we're excavating from the building, spread it out over the site, have an even balanced site cut and fill, and save a significant amount of money, and still potentially build the full gymnasium for less than what this project would be. We would essentially build the gym for less per square foot and eliminate a significant portion of all of the site components. So there is another thing that benefits the project in this option, is that it allows the gym component to be an ad alternate. So it could be phased in. If the town can't afford it at this time, they could construct it in the future. The site accommodates this work, and just for the record, this concept is applicable to any of the schemes. So we could build a second gym on this site, even with the original concept design. So if we felt we needed 2 gyms on the site, I don't think we have the parking for that, but physically we could accommodate that. I had a problem with that concept though, because for a number of reasons. Number one, when you make that space sort of disposable, it risks that it never comes back. Also, it doesn't provide the services in the building for the seniors. So I put a 5th option together. Hold on, I just wanted to go back and mention that option 4 has a significant amount of cost savings. The core building itself, we can probably reduce the cost to somewhere between $4 and $5.5 million. Then, of course, we have to build back a gym to the tune of $2 to $3 million, somewhere's in there. But you can take a big bite out of the project cost in this configuration. So understanding that would remove the big exercise and dance fitness classroom, I really kind of got to the point where I felt like, okay, now maybe we've bitten off too much. and I put a fifth scheme together that would recapture some of the basement space, create fitness and a dance exercise space that would accommodate a pickleball court. We have expanded human services and food pantry, but we lose all of the original gym and storage and stair. The basement level would just be at 16 feet below grade, and that this would result in about a 9,000 square foot reduction, savings of $3.5 to $4.5 million in the total project cost. It does result in only one pickleball court. At the upstairs, again, we would consolidate these two classrooms and then capture this patio and have two activity spaces here and save about $4 million to the project. This option would also allow for the future construction of a gym. So what I liked about this option was that it preserved the exercise space and one pickleball court, but a big dance fitness space, preserved the multifunction room, saved $4 million to the total project, and creates a pad site for future community use, pickleball courts, gymnasium, etc. So these are some options to stew on. I'm not telling you that any of these are the right option or the wrong option. I'm really ultimately going to rely on this committee to, tell me how to inform you. But these are some ideas to save money and reduce the cost of the project, potentially create footprint for a more complete project long term, which would really be interesting. It's a way to accomplish a gymnasium at this site for less money than the current configuration. So my recommendation to the committee moving forward, having done this for a lot of communities, is stew on these ideas and discuss them. A lot of towns that I work for and committees like yourself hold their meetings in this sort of public forum, and it's really hard to have a lot of debate and back and forth. My recommendation, if you as a committee can do this, is to have sort of a working subcommittee, get both aisles of the table both sides of the aisle at a working table to talk about some of these ideas, see if as a committee you can put a consolidated solution moving forward together. And maybe there's some options, maybe there's some parts that ideas we haven't considered that would come out of that. And Michelle Jacobs should be at that conversation. So those are my ideas, and I hope it leaves you with something to stew on over the next couple of weeks while I go on vacation.
Yeah, exactly. Before you go, Mike, I'm just going to mention a couple of things, and we will stew, and you're right, we're not going to be able to go over each of these and do the pros and cons, but I will stress that a separate gym that contains a pickleball court would not be used by the seniors. They're not going to walk outside to go use it. They're not going to put a staff person in there. And so, although I understand that for future use, I would be, what has guided us this whole time is programmatic needs. And I feel like some of these have kind of lost that at the cost of money. And going back to what Christine said, that's obviously important, but I think it's our job as a committee to advocate for what the needs of the center are, and I don't want to get that lost as we're continuing to discuss this. I do have one quick question just about one of the options, and I'm taking advantage of having the microphone in the chair, but option 5, is it possible for that to be a two pickleball instead of an exercise room? Because everything else about it seems to kind of meet the needs we've all been discussing, except for that space.
Well, we can look at that. again, I'm really trying to figure out a way to reduce the excavation.
Yes.
Because without reducing the excavation, I really can't save any real dollars.
Right.
Or without building it as a separate building. It's certainly something we can look into. Maybe we can put an addition off the back of the building that's built at grade and not into the soil. Maybe there's a place to put another pickleball court. That's an idea we hadn't considered.
Yeah, I think-
Obviously we have schemes that have 1, 2, 3, or 0 pickleball courts in the basement. It can't happen in the basement.
Right.
Like, I don't want to take all of these schemes keep most of the senior programming intact. They do. Maybe we've lost one room, except for the gym and pickleball courts. So if I can find the way to get you to pickleball court number that you have to have, and it's a deal breaker if you don't have it, I will do that. But it's got to be out of ground.
Well, exactly. And I am only saying this now because, and Michelle will be in future conversations, obviously, but that was, she said her biggest programmatic thing at this point is pickleball. And she said if I had to pick something that I had to stay, it would be 2 pickleball courts. So it's hard for me to look at any other option, any option that doesn't carry that. That being said, as I said to you earlier, I know how creative you guys can be, and if we can find a way to do that above ground, whether it's a wing of some kind or whatever, or a possibility at taking another component and putting it separate, perhaps even the food pantry was a conversation, or at least attached further down, still above grade, making more room for the pickleball courts to be there. But I agree. Obviously, where our savings are going to be in keeping as much things above as we can, but I just don't want to lose sight of what their priorities seem to be at this point.
Keep in mind, there's a couple other things that I didn't mention, is that this particular site option doesn't have to have a structure. I know the neighbors don't want outdoor pickleball courts, but
Need any more outdoor pickleball courts?
But what I'm saying
20 is
is
enough.
What I'm saying is you could have 1 indoor court or no indoor courts and 1, 2, or 3 outdoor courts. Again, programmatically, that doesn't work great, but
Just doesn't meet the needs of the. They went through such a big thing of putting so many outdoor pickleball courts in, and what I heard today is that seniors don't always like to play outside in the summer too. So I think our whole point of this is keeping with the programmatic needs that we've been given, not that's something that someone's assuming, not anything that they've come directly from the senior center and what's happening there now. So
I've been charged with offering up options to save dollars, and those result in hard decisions sometimes. And I'm glad I don't have to make it. So.
I have a quick.
just going to keep in mind, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but and to Tom's point, we really do need to stew on this instead of asking us specifics. I just wanted to give Michelle's voice. So if it's something specific, let's wait. We can even call a special meeting if we really are, this is itching to be talked about. But
Now, this is hopefully very, very quick and to the point. We're willing to give up 1/3 of the building for anywhere from 12 to 16% savings. I don't think that's a good investment.
I didn't.
I think because what he's saying is, for something that isn't like a travesty, we're going to save like $2 million. Forget about all the extra money we have to pay them to do this and all the extra money in construction escalation.
Bad investment.
So I don't think I can forgive myself if I don't say this right now, that I am really, really asking you, Mike, to go back to your caucus and please ask them to reconsider this. I don't know if this was professional. I don't know if I'm breaking some sort of rule, but I really, really wish that you guys would reconsider this.
Okay.
Tom, option 5, what was the square footage for that?
I was going to turn it back on.
So about the same size as the current facility But is that pickleball court? Is that a stand? That's the only thing that's for, right? Like we wouldn't have to be sharing that for other activities.
No, that room would also be dance fitness room, but it would be an exercise room. So what currently happens at the senior center is you have one multifunction room. It's a room for, you know, for large lunches or meals or speaking performances, right? Lectures, dances, shows. And that's also where they play pickleball. So if you're playing pickleball, then you can't do the other. Whereas this, although it only has one pickleball court, it reflects dual flexibility because you now have two spaces. So I'm not defending one. Well, I am defending one pickleball court, but the point is that's not my decision to make. I'm just saying this option, option 5, provides significantly more flexibility than they have now. It's not totally what we'd like to have.
And this would be a cost saving of what was that again? 4 or 5 was it?
I think it really sorry, option 5 is I'm saying about 4 million, 3.5 to 4.5 million. The other one saved more because we were taking a lot more of the basement out, and there was no pickleball court. The challenge with option 5 is with no pickleball court, now you have to, in theory, to get back to the program demand, you have to spend some money to either build an outdoor pickleball court or build an enclosed pickleball court. So while you're saving 5, you're really, you know, ultimately going to spend more. At some point, you're going to bite it off.
So if I could, Tom, thank you so much. You were charged with a task. You were doing this out of the goodness of your heart, and 48 hours later, thank you so much. I just want to bring up a point here. You know, we're talking about, let's say we're talking about $4.5 million. Let's use the high number, $5.5 million. We're talking about that over, I just want to remind our committee, 20 years, okay? It's a 20-year savings. It is not a significant savings.
Thank you. If I can add one more thing, these are ballpark numbers.
Right.
I've been engaged. Town council asked that we have an estimator evaluate these options. They asked for 3 options. I just brainstormed a bunch. There could be more. The savings could be a little less. They could be a little more in these options, but you really have to dive into the details.
So, okay.
Yeah, I want to reiterate, I'm very impressed you have 5 options already.
He has not slept.
And that gives us time to work together and try to get this to somewhere in between. And we have to propose 3. So I guess we really need the cooperation, Mike, from your committee there or your caucus to make sure there's feedback back and forth. I'd hate to be blindsided and to have everybody come out again and lose faith in what we're trying to do here. I liked what we did the other night, disappointed with the way it came out, but we really did do a good job and we tried very hard.
So I think, go ahead.
So Dawn, to your point, I think that would start with the subcommittee, right, and being able to work between meetings, and that was going back to my point of the March 18th to the timeline of the vote. Being able to have a subcommittee allows us to hem and haw over these options and hopefully come to a scenario where we feel more comfortable going maybe into our next meeting, right, with some feedback.
Exactly. That's what we need is the feedback between council members to really help guide us.
And just right
That's
here
it.
alone, because I know these are all soft numbers, right? Just we're talking, but option 5, if that saves $4.5 million, let's just say, and I know I'm being generous. If we add in some value engineering, Tom, what we talked about the other night, it could be another $1 million somewhere. So we might be able to trim 5 to 5.5 to maybe even 6 off the number we discussed the other night.
And then value engineering also decides at what cost, right? Are we meeting programmatic needs? So I think we really have to let these sit. I'm going to let Dan talk, and then I'll do a roundup.
I just want to remind everybody that if you set up subcommittees, working committees, those are public meetings that have to be warned. under the Freedom of Information Act and the town charter, and minutes have to be kept, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not just a private meeting, it's not a caucus.
Which always makes it trickier.
Can I ask a question?
You can.
I'm sorry, Attorney Shopik. How many people from the committee can actually get together and have a conversation without it being a quorum or a formal meeting? Let's say if you met on the sidelines at the softball game.
If you met at the sidelines at a softball games, you might get away with it. If you are 3 Democrats getting together to have a caucus, that's okay. If you're 3 Republicans getting together and having a caucus, that's okay. You're allowed to caucus. But this is not a caucus. This is a meeting of members. So you're forming a subcommittee, just like the council has subcommittees. All right, those subcommittees are subject to Freedom of Information rules, and the meetings need to be public.
Scheduled and
Scheduled.
found a place and.
So the members of the public can participate by being there. They don't have to. You don't have to give them the right to speak.
Right.
They need to be.
So let me ask you this, as people dwell over these options, and without formal meetings, but informal conversations, whether it's they send their ideas to me and what's a way to kind of be able to have conversations, wait a minute, Ron, okay? Working conversations to kind of tear these apart or build up on them and be able to it's just to not have to do it in this body.
Well, part of the problem is if you're the collector of the suggestions, all right. So anybody has a suggestion, Christine has a suggestion, Mike has a suggestion. Send it to Lori, and we'll bring it up at the next meeting. That's fine. But if we're going to negotiate those suggestions, then it really should be done in a public forum.
Yes, Ron.
I'm sorry to be so insistent, but to me, the obvious thing is, why don't we caucus?
Because, well, the good thing about this committee is we got a good mix of everybody.
Well, I
So we have
understand- I
we have as
understand.
much unaffiliated as we do Republicans and Democrats. And honestly, for the 10 years I've been on this, we have very much stayed away from the political realm, and I'd like to keep it that way.
Well, just because we're in the political realm, we break into 2 caucuses, that doesn't mean we're at odds.
But we don't really have 2 caucuses.
Well, we have Republicans and Democrats,
And unaffiliated.
and me,
I have
unaffiliated.
another question.
Yeah, so therefore, why couldn't we caucus and accomplish what we're trying to? I don't know.
Go ahead, Tom.
I had a question for Attorney Shopik. Is it Shopik or Shopik? Shopik. Can this building committee work in executive session?
Ask me that one. I got it.
Building committee cannot, as a matter of course, meet in executive session. There are certain things that if they were negotiating a contract with QA&M, that could go into executive session. All right, if there's a question of if it's a question of discussing, and I think Hillcrest Building Committee, I think when they discussed and interviewed architects and things like that, that took place in executive session. But but in terms of the substance of the work that you're doing here, no. All right, and to answer again, Ron, the caucus would be Democrats only, Republicans only, and you have other people who are unaffiliated, they wouldn't be able to participate.
And that's me.
Okay. You're unaffiliated.
So I am very happily unaffiliated. Yes. Yeah, you should. You should. So, Tom, you need to go. And what we'll propose now is kind of everybody dwell on this, as you said. We may try to call a special meeting in a couple weeks. I'm going to have to sit on this so that by the time you're back, we can have some good feedback from you. So.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Safe
Have a great
travels.
vacation.
Thank you so much. Above and beyond. Yeah, our guys. I'll just bug Rocco while you're away. So, to the committee. To the committee. I think the best way to handle this at this time, because obviously no work is going to be done for a little bit. We don't have any money. We don't know if we're going to have any money to even put these together. That really is our first step. So that we really need to deal with that first. I would say in the meantime, we will get. Oh, Rocco, will you send me that presentation? Thank you. I'll send you the presentation tomorrow, and it'll be included in the minutes. And I think individually, people should kind of just jot down their ideas. At this point, just send them to me. And I think we'll need to figure out how we're going to be able to split this up in a way that's most productive. I think we should go with our first step of acquiring the money that is even going to give us the opportunity to create these. Okay, Tony.
Thanks, Laurie. I don't have anything specific because you asked us not to come up with anything like that, but I did have a couple of observations as we had this conversation. Somebody mentioned the word ageism, and, you know, I'm not saying that's what's going on here, but, you know, I do find it mystifying that we have a 105-year-old building that we call a senior center, and yet we're willing to spend $142 million on a new middle school. We spent $73 million on a high school about 12 years ago. You know, and the numbers are what they are, but I just read an article in the Connecticut Post where we spent like $11 million, including $5.5 million on the football field and the drainage at Trumbull High School. So we're pouring money into our school system. That's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But we're not willing to spend a little money on our seniors. And by the way, somebody said the senior population in this town might be 25%, so that's 9,200 people. Student population, if I'm right, is 6,900 students. So again, you know, we're willing to spend this kind of money on, you know, our students, and we love our kids, you know, but we're unwilling, or some of us are completely unwilling to just spend a little money on a center that will last 60, 70 years. Ageism or not, it's mystifying to me. A couple of other things, you know, and by the way, ageism, you want to talk about ageism? There's somebody on social media, and I should not go on these pages, but there's somebody on social media that sneeringly calls it a senior/community/pickleball center repeatedly. So what is that? Where's that sentiment coming from?
I understand people are frustrated, and I don't want to let this get too far away, and I appreciate your sentiments, Tony. No, I get it. Trust me. You did not want to be in my house yesterday. Yeah, I get it. And I appreciate all that. I think it's time that we have to be productive. I think we also have a right to say one of our options is to stick close to what we have. I still think with what we have, there's some things we can cut down to save some money, and I'll put that in my own suggestion box. And I think it's a responsible thing to do that. I don't want anybody digging in their heels in either way, because we were offended by that happening to us, so we don't want to be the ones who do it. I think we just all have to kind of relax from the other night and really look at these and really look at what it needs. What I don't want to get lost in is what the programmatic needs are. I don't want to send $1 million and lose what we have been basing this on for 10 years. And whether we're talking about pickleball or whatever, if they're saying they need two pickleball courts, I believe Michelle, and I see it. I've gone there and I've seen it. So those are the kind of things that drive my thought process. Do I want to save money? Yes. Do I want to stick to what our goal is and our purpose is? Absolutely. So I would say please try to look at these with an open mind. I really don't think Thomas slept. I know when I talked to him Tuesday morning, he was on his third cup of coffee by 8 a.m. So I know he can create even more moving forward. And I think we just have to keep as open a mind as possible. Kind of get over the hurt of the other night and move on to be as productive as we possibly can.
Sounds like you want me to stop.
I don't want you to stop. I want people to
air
their frustration. But I don't want to get into social media. I don't think that's going to be helpful for anybody.
That's fair. Can I make one other point? So why, if we're making a really significant reduction in programming and functionality, most of these proposals, indicate that. But we're looking at $5.5 million savings as a best case. Again, to echo Ron, I don't think that's a good deal. And by the way, and if you're going to cut programming, but you also want you sort of say that the facility is not used by enough people, not used by enough senior citizens. If you cut programming, that's going to come true. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, yeah, I guess that's it.
That's a good productive point.
I know a lot of these numbers that they put down were rough, but I just put down a couple notes and kind of the same sentiment as a lot of people have here. But we're kind of at the shallow knee of the curve here. So on the first option, you get a 5.5% cost reduction and you lose 15% of your space. That's going to drive it up to $1,181 per square feet. If we're going to talk about just the irritating dollars per square foot, right? So it's going to drive the dollars per square foot up, right? In the second option, it's going to drive it up by $200 per square foot, up to $1,250 per square foot. It's going to get a 9% cost reduction. You're going to lose a quarter of your space. Programming or whatever it is aside, just $1 per square foot, right? Option 5, you're going to 13% cost reduction, and you're going to lose a third of your building. It's going to drive it up to $1,322 per square foot. So we're going to come back to a circular argument of how much money is too much money per square foot when we're actually driving in that direction. It's very inefficient, and I think we did a good job understanding what the senior center needs were. I've been on this committee for 6 years. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I wanted it bigger to start because of this exact, in the original estimates, for an extra 10% more, we could have got another 25% more space. And everyone's like, boo for me. So we stopped doing that. So I understood that sensitivity. But now we're going the other way, and we're taking out a lot of space for not a lot of dollars. So I just want to point out that trend that's going on right now.
And you just did our cost benefit analysis, so we can
That's
check
exactly
that one
what
off.
it is, yeah.
Actually, that was a lesson in economies of scale, is what that is, from a business point of view.
And you know what? An important point, and it was okay that that's brought up, but I think the answers have to be just as important as the question, right? And I think, I don't know how you did that quickly. It's a little frightening. I know you got that whole engineering thing going, but that was weird. But I really appreciate that we have to look at the whole picture. It's one thing to just say, let's save $5 million, but what are we losing? And I think as you guys are, whatever Tom kept calling it, dwelling in these and really looking at these to keep that in mind. And also look at, these are changeable. These are not the ones we're putting forward. We're not close to that yet. We don't know if we can pay for anything to be put forward yet. But I just, like I said, an open mind, some flexibility, and keeping that very important point, I think, at the forefront is really necessary. We don't want to lose more than we gain just by saving a few bucks over 20 years, to Dave's point. So does everybody feel like they have...
I did have just one thing to add, and just to build on your point, Lori. In terms of our being flexible, our mandate is to put together 3 options. It doesn't mean 3 new options, right? So our current option can be one option, and then we could ruminate on 2 additional options, and then that meets that mandate of 3 options. Just something to think about.
No, I consider that, obviously, verbatim that would be true. I don't know if it would be productive, but I agree. And I think the kind of discussion we've had here at the end, that may be the most cost-efficient plan yet. I just, I like compromise. I think it's important. That's why I had this conversation with Michelle to see what could lose. I think the most important thing to save any money is about the digging, and I think we should maybe look at other ways to create the same kind of spaces in a different way. I talked about maybe a wing, at level instead of, and that maybe that can happen. This is just a start, and I think we're all pretty emotionally charged and frustrated, and I think it's a good time to kind of let it sit and then let your imaginations go wild. And we've known Tom to be open to any and all suggestions, and I would expect that to continue. Okay, sure.
Dan, I have a question for you. If it says that the members of the council, not all of them, some asked it to request to present 3 alternative design options, does that mean we need 3 new ones?
Yes.
right? To what we propose, they're asking for 3 alternative designs.
It doesn't mean that you can't also remind them what your existing design is.
To give them 4.
All right, if you wanted to say another option is to go back to Hardy Lane, all right, you could throw that in there, but they're asking for 3 other alternates, right? 3 alternates. Hardy Lane would not be existing alternate. Hardy Lane could be another alternate.
Fair enough. I don't have the wording in front of me, and we don't have the minutes yet, so thanks.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I looked at your point, Christine, to say, look at what we have and see, you know, like I said, get rid of the exterior patio. Does that save us some room someplace else that there could be just even a little bit less sticking? It may not be significant savings, but it's an attempt to make some changes. So, okay. Wrap it up. Sorry, Rich. You haven't.
Since I haven't spoken all night, and I was not able to go to the town council meeting, so as soon as that's available online, I'll brew a pot of coffee, and I will sit down and watch it. So the only thoughts that I have is I'm sitting here taking this all in, right? We have been pursuing this design that we thought is what is best for the town. But if I was going to recap the vast majority of feedback that we've gotten from public comment, it would be smaller building. People wanted the building to be smaller on this site. They thought the building was too big, right? Some people don't want it there at all. It's in a neighborhood. They don't like the location, but most people seem to be able to get past the location, but wanted a smaller size. So my only thought is if that is the feedback that's, gotten back to the council and bubbled up, that could have been the reason for pursuing this. And although it's going to cost money, maybe in the end it's a useful exercise so people can at least see some of these other options that are available. And once they see them, do they like what they see? And Tom's not here to thank him for doing that in such a short period of time, but people will be able to see that before our next meeting, before we even have, any harder numbers, and hopefully people, from the public can come and talk and tell us what they think of some of these alternatives.
So I'll give you a hot tip on watching the recording. You can go by the first hour plus, which it was lovely. But I just want to clarify something about public comment, because you guys don't get to see the emails that we get in the town council from the community. And this would be the opportunity that I would have to tell every single person in Trumbull that they have a voice and we listen. And a very, very overwhelming number of people emailed us in support of the project as it was. And in fact, the public comment at the meeting on Monday night, the majority of the people who spoke were in favor of the project, because it took the seniors a while, I think, to kind of understand what was happening here. And so they were very overwhelmed and intimidated by some of the public comment that happened early on. But they did really start to get very engaged and come out and be brave enough to speak. And that was really inspiring to see. So there were a lot more people in favor, a lot of people in favor. And in terms of my recollection of who was giving feedback about the size, was largely, understandably, the neighbors. So I just wanted to share that with you, because it's a really long meeting, but you should watch it.
So, I've also get feedback, right, as I go around town and ask anybody who, will give me feedback, what they think of it. And I've also gotten a lot of, positive feedback about it, right? And thus my support that I've had for it. But, there are others that feel differently, so that has to be considered.
All right. We have another agenda item. Before that is next steps, and we may be visiting Board of Finance tomorrow evening and seeing if Board of Finance will approve. I believe Tom has do you want to speak to that? Thank you. Because on top of drawing pictures, he had to come up with an estimate of what it'll cost us to get those pictures, so.
What's that? My therapist would be very happy. That's right. Am I supposed to be standing up this many times? And I think it's good for me, right? 2 steps. Laney, am I all right? The town has, there's a letter of today's date directed to George Estrada, Director of Public Works. Mr. Arcari has presented a budget of $125,000 that he needs to move forward. So that would be the ask. I don't know if and that would essentially be a not to exceed number. But in order for, we would need a supplemental appropriation for that.
My question for that, I mean, obviously a supplemental appropriation is the money part, but is there a contract extension needs to happen with that, or
Yeah,
does it
there
fall
would-
under the same?
No, there would be a contract extension that goes with that. But-
Okay.
And I haven't read, I mean, I've got 4 pages here.
Okay.
I haven't read everything that he says is included or not included.
Okay.
But we would have to go through that for his.
Okay.
For his
Okay.
contract. And just to point out, I don't know whether the numbers that were reflected here in Mr. Carey's talk included the escalation for additional time, because there's
Well,
going to be an escalation.
Because there was an escalation in the original cost estimate that was presented last
Yes.
Monday. I don't know if there's a further
I don't know how that
escalation.
figured into the.
Okay, we'll have to clarify that, thank you. Okay, that's answered. Speaking of money, we have a bill to pay. I believe I sent it to everybody, so if I could have a motion for invoice number 16955 for QA&M, and the total of $35,693.01. Where those costs were pointed out in the invoice that everyone received. So if I could get that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Who was first, Dave and then Kelly? Okay, any questions? No, okay, and so unanimous approval? All right, Gia, that's all set. Okay, and I'm just gonna go with a big assumption for unanimous approval for adjournment at,
Is that a recommendation to the finance to?
oh, we need to vote on that? Okay, sorry, I didn't realize okay, so sorry, backing up. We need to vote on, give me the right wording, you can sit down to do it, a recommendation to the Board of Finance for a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $125,000 to pursue these other designs.
So moved.
Okay, that's done. And a second?
Second.
Ron, all in favor? All in favor? Good. Okay. All right. Now unanimous consent to adjourn at
Motion to adjourn.
9:14.
9:14. Thank you all.
Smoke.
Good night, Gia.